There's this idea floating around that playing with other musicians is the next step up. Like you graduate from being a solo act, and now you're in a band and everything just magically levels up. More energy, bigger sound, more fun. In theory, in reality, playing with other musicians is a bit like getting into a relationship because you're sick of eating dinner alone. It sounds great until you realise you now have to agree on what to eat every single night with someone who thinks pineapple belongs on everything. And that's before money gets involved. I've played with a lot of musicians over the years, managed a band for about 10 years. Different lineups, personalities, same recurring issues. And every now and then, very rarely, you'll find someone where it just works. No drama, no ego. They just show up, do the job, and somehow you actually enjoy being around them. That's the dream. But most of the time, it's not that. So in this video, I want to go through the reality of playing with other musicians. Not the romantic version, the actual one. The pitfalls, the trade-offs, and the occasional upside when you find the right people. Number one, the better offer exit. You find someone good, you rehearse, you build a set, you put the hours in, and just when it starts to feel like something's actually working, they're gone. No drama, no big fallout, just a message or a casual mention they've picked something else up. Right? Something better. Better money, better gigs, better exposure, whatever the reason is. And just like that, everything you built together resets to a bagel. It's a strange feeling because you realise you didn't have a band. You had the musical version of someone holding your ladder and then wandering off because Michelle just remembered they're out of oat milk. It's like dating someone who's still actively on dating apps. You're planning a future and they're swiping between songs. And the frustrating part is you can't really even blame them because this is the nature of it. Most musicians aren't thinking long term, they're thinking, what's the best option for me right now? And if something better comes along, they take it. Which means every time you invest into someone, you're taking on that risk. You're building something that the other person doesn't necessarily feel responsible for protecting. And if you're trying to make a living out of this, that's a problem. Because consistency matters more than potential. You can have the most talented player in the world, but if they're not there the next month, they're useless to you. It's like booking a table for the best restaurant in town for yesterday. So this is the trade-off. When you bring someone else into your act, you're not just adding sound, you're adding uncertainty. If you think that's frustrating, the next one's worse. Number two, different goals. Hobby versus living. This is the one that sneaks up on you. At the start, everything feels fine. You're playing the same songs, rehearsals, everyone's getting along. It looks like it's working, but underneath that, you're not actually aiming at the same thing. One person's thinking, how do we turn this into regular work, better gigs, more income? Next one is thinking it's fun. He gets to play on a Friday night and have a few drinks. And those two mindsets don't clash immediately, they drift. It's subtle at first. You're tightening the set list, thinking about flow, thinking about what actually works in a room. And they're suggesting songs that they just feel like playing, whether it works or not. You're trying to build something, they're just trying to enjoy it. And neither of you is technically wrong, but you're definitely not aligned. It's like turning up at a game thinking it's competitive and realising halfway through Dave's still got his jeans on and keeps stopping to chug his bloody beer. Or you're showing up with a plan, a system, a goal, and they've just brought vibes. Vibes, that's it. And again, it doesn't explode, it just slowly becomes frustrating because every decision starts pulling in different directions. You want consistency, they want flexibility. You want structure, they want freedom. You want this to go somewhere, they're happy exactly where it is. And over that time, the gap gets wider until eventually you're not even playing the same genre anymore. You're just standing on the same stage, like showing up for a meeting with a presentation and Gary's got a bloody muffin, no idea why he's there. All right, so somehow you've ironed all that out. Everyone's on the same page now. Give it a second. Number three, creative differences. This is where it starts to feel like work, but not the kind you get paid for. At the beginning, it's exciting. Everyone's throwing in ideas, suggesting songs, talking about direction. It feels collaborative, like you're building something together, and then slowly everyone starts having opinions, strong opinions, about everything. Song choices, arrangements, tempos, keys. And suddenly every decision turns into a bloody discussion. And not a quick one either, a proper back and forth where nobody really wants to give any ground. Because everyone thinks they're contributing. And again, technically they are, but not all contributions are equal. You'll be thinking about what actually works in a room, what keeps people engaged, what keeps the night flowing, right? And someone else is pushing for a song they like because they heard it once in the car and now it could be a vibe. And now you're stuck in this situation where you're not just playing music, you're negotiating it. It's like every decision needs approval, and the more people you add to this, the worse this gets. Because now it's not just one opinion, it's 3, 4, 5, all pulling in slightly different directions. Until eventually, you're not building a set list anymore. You're in a group chat at 11:30 at night typing out a full argument about tempo while Dave sends a voice note from his car saying, "Yeah, I reckon we just keep it loose." Like that's solved anything. It's like trying to pick a place to eat in a group chat where everyone says, "I'm easy." And then Trevor says, "Not Thai." Michelle says, "No burgers." And Gary just sends a thumbs up with no actual opinion. And that's where it starts to stall. Because music works best when someone just decides and everyone just gets on board. But in a band, that's rarely how it goes. But even if you manage to manage all of this next one can still ruin it. If you were just about to start a band after this video and now you're not, you're welcome. Like and subscribe. Most people watching aren't subscribed. It's like knowing exactly where everything is and still opening every cupboard like you've never been there before. Number 4, the outshine everyone ego. Yeah, there's always one. The person who can't just sit in the pocket and do their job. Every song turns into their moment. Extra licks, louder parts, stretching things that don't need stretching. You're playing a band set and they're treating it like a bloody audition. It's not even subtle. You'll be halfway through a song that's working perfectly, crowd's engaged, everything's sitting where it should, and suddenly there's this extra run or a fill that goes on a bit too long or a part that it's just bigger than it needs to be, right? Not because the song needs it, but because they do. And you can feel it straight away, right? The balance shifts. The groove tightens in the wrong way. Stops feeling like a band and starts feeling like everyone is accompanying one person who didn't get the memo. I know you all know what I'm talking about, right? It's bloody frustrating, isn't it? They think they're adding to it. They think they're lifting it, like they're closing out a festival set and someone's wheeling past with a tray of scones. But what they're actually doing is pulling focus away from what's already working. Because good band playing is invisible, in a sense, right? It supports, it sits, it lets the song do the work, it doesn't consistently remind everyone that you're there. But this person just can't help themselves. Every gap is an opportunity. Every section is a chance to add something. And before long, the whole thing just feels cluttered, like no one's actually listening. They're just waiting for their turn, It's like being at a dinner where someone keeps topping up their own story, right? You're halfway through explaining something and they jump in with a bigger, better version, louder, longer, extra details no one asked for. And now the table's gone quiet because everyone just knows exactly how this ends. And that's the problem, because in a band, if one person's trying to stand out all the time, the whole thing just starts to fall apart. And the audience might not know exactly why, but they can feel it. Number 5, reliability is rare. This is my pet peeve, right? This sounds obvious, but it's not, right? You assume when you bring someone into your act, they're going to show up on time, know the material, be prepared, do the job. That feels like the baseline, right? It's not. Being on time, knowing the songs, having your gear sorted, not creating unnecessary stress, that's already above average. And you don't realise how rare that is until you start dealing with the opposite. Late arrivals, last minute messages. I'll just wing it, turning up half prepared and hoping it all holds together. And now, instead of focusing on the gig, you're managing someone else. You're adjusting on the fly, covering gaps, simplifying things just to keep it from falling apart. And it's exhausting because consistency is everything in this game. Venues don't care how talented you are on your best night. They just care that you deliver every night. And if someone in your act is unpredictable, that unpredictability becomes your problem. It's like waiting for someone who said, "Yeah, I'll be there at 7." And at 7:18, you get a message that says, "Just leaving now," with a thumbs up. Like that somehow fixes it. And again, it doesn't have to be dramatic. It's not one big failure. It's small things repeated. Little cracks that keep showing up until eventually you realise you're not working with a team, you're working around someone. And that's when it starts to wear you down. It's hard to soar like an eagle when you work with turkeys. Number 6, money tension. This is where things get uncomfortable because at the start, everyone's just happy to split it evenly. Nice and simple, no awkward conversations, no maths, no drama, just divide it up and move on. And that works for about 5 minutes. Because over time, you start noticing who's actually carrying the night, who's driving the set, reading the room, holding everything together, and who's just there playing their parts and going home. And now that even split doesn't feel so bloody even anymore. You're putting in the work before the gig, during the gig, after the gig, organising, communicating, making sure everything runs properly, and someone else is turning up, plugging in and collecting the same amount. And again, no one says anything straight away. Because the moment you bring up money, it just gets awkward. Now it's not just music anymore, it's value, it's contribution, and who's worth what. And most people would rather avoid that conversation entirely, so it just sits there and builds until every gig has this underlying tension that no one's acknowledging. It's like splitting a bill where you've had a main, a drink, maybe a dessert, and Darren's ordered 3 cocktails and ribs and somehow still says, yeah, just split it evenly, while reaching for the last chip. And you can feel it. Because once the money starts feeling uneven, everything else follows. Resentment creeps in, motivation drops, standards slip, and what used to feel like a team starts feeling transactional. And that's a hard place to come back from. Number 7, set up and pack down reality. This is one no one talks about, but everyone feels. Because when you're running an act, the gig doesn't start when you play the first note. It starts when you arrive, setting up, organising gear, getting levels right, making sure everything's good to go. And that's when you start noticing the difference. You're there early, unloading, setting up properly, thinking ahead. Someone else just strolls in 5 minutes before start time or holding a flat white like this is a bloody casual drop-in. No urgency, no awareness, just where do you want me? And now you're rushing. What should have been a smooth setup has suddenly become a scramble. Cables everywhere, quick line checks, adjusting on the fly, all because one person treated the start time like a suggestion. And it doesn't stop there. End of the night, last song finishes, you're packing down, wrapping cables, loading gear, and you look up and they're gone. Just gone. Or they're still there and somehow doing the least useful job imaginable, slowly rolling a cable like it's a bloody family heirloom while you're carrying half the PA in your own. It's like organising a move, right? Booking the truck, packing everything, and Chris turns up with a smoothie asking if there's anything light he can grab. And over time, that stuff just adds up because it's not just about playing anymore, it's about respect for the whole job. And when that's not shared, it shows. Number 8, friendship versus business. This is where things get a bit uncomfortable because most bands don't start as a business, they start as mates playing music. You get along, you have a laugh, you enjoy hanging out, it feels easy. That's usually why it starts in the first place. But then gigs come in, money comes in, expectations come in. And now it's not just a hang anymore because the moment money gets involved, everything changes. Standards matter more, reliability matters more, discussions actually have a consequence, and suddenly you're not just dealing with a musician, you're dealing with a mate who's now tied to your income, which means that when something's not right, you can't just ignore it. You have to say something, and that's where it gets awkward. Because now you're trying to have a professional conversation with someone who you used to just joke around with. You're choosing words carefully, softening things, trying not to make it weird. While also knowing that if you don't address it, it's going to keep happening. Most of the time, it still gets weird. Because not everyone separates those two things well. To you, it's about the gig. To them, it feels personal. And now you've got this tension where no one's fully comfortable anymore. You're not as relaxed, they're not as relaxed, and the whole thing just shifts, right? It's like asking Dave to transfer you the money he owes you while he shows you a photo of the new TV he just bought. And you can feel it. Something's changed because once business and friendships start clashing, it's very hard to keep both intact. Right, you'd think after all that, you'd give up on this, right? But then this happens. Number 9, when it actually works. Every now and then it works, and you notice it straight away. There's no friction, no overthinking, no constant discussions about what to do next. Things just move. You start a song and it sits where it should. Everyone knows their role. No one's trying to overplay. No one's dragging things down. It just feels easy. And that's the strange part because you realise how much effort everything else usually takes. There's no chasing people, no second-guessing decisions, no wondering if someone's going to show up prepared. It's like you just turn up and play, and it works. And those people are rare. Reliable, easy to work with, no ego. Same goals. They don't make the job harder, they make it lighter. It's like turning up to a gig expecting usual chaos and Everything's already done. Leads are run, levels are good. Everyone's ready, and you're just standing there with your guitar thinking, what have I forgotten? Because it's never this smooth. And that's when you realize this is what it's supposed to feel like. And once you've experienced that, it becomes very hard to go back. Because now you know the difference between something that works and something you're consistently trying to hold together. It's like being in a relationship where everything's calm, easy, no drama, and then remembering the one where you were analysing text messages like they were bloody evidence in a trial while they were out buying a pot plant and not replying. I'll be completely honest here, after running a band for 10 years and having a carousel of about 25 different musicians and singers, I've experienced this twice. Anyway, this next one's like a third nut on a greyhound. Obvious but awkward to mention. Number 10, the weak link problem. This is the one that's hardest to deal with because you can't handle it. In a band, you're only ever as strong as the weakest person on stage. Doesn't matter how well you play, how tight you are, how much effort you put in. If one person drops the standard, that's the standard. And the audience feels it. They might not know exactly what it is, but they know something's off, and it rubs off on you too. Timing's slightly loose, parts don't quite land, energy dips at the wrong moments, and suddenly the whole thing feels less professional and less convincing, and there's nothing you can do in that moment. You can't outplay it, you can't compensate for it without it becoming obvious. You just have to carry it and hope it holds together. And most of the time, it's tied to effort. One person's putting in the effort, learning things properly, refining things, thinking about how it all fits together, and someone else is just turning up and hoping it's good enough. And that gap shows, it always shows, because live performance is unforgiving. There's nowhere to hide, no second take, no editing. What's there is what people get, right? It's like turning up to a group presentation where everyone's rehearsed, slides are ready, and timing's tight, and Mark's gone bloody rogue, just ripping off his phone and skipping half the points and somehow saying, yeah, well, that went well, while everyone else is packing up in silence. And that's the problem, because once that standard drops, everything drops with it. And now you're not performing at your level. You're performing at theirs. All right, I've got a bonus tip for you. Know when you actually need someone. There is a situation where bringing someone else in isn't just a nice idea, it's necessary. And that's vocals. If you know your vocals aren't strong enough to carry a full night, or you're constantly changing keys, dropping things down, avoiding certain songs, or quietly steering away from anything that exposes it, then you're going to need someone, who can actually front it, right? Because at that point, it's not about preference, it's about the product. People will forgive a slightly messy guitar part, they won't forgive weak vocals. That's what everything revolves around. If the vocal's not there, the whole thing feels off, no matter how good everything else is. You can have the best tone, the best playing, the cleanest setup, but if the vocals don't land, none of it connects. It's like turning up in a suit, polished shoes, everything's sharp. You realise your fly's been down the whole night. And you feel it. You feel it in the room when songs don't quite lift the way they should. You feel it when you're second guessing your set list. Skipping things you would work, or choosing songs based on what you can get through instead of actually what lands. And the audience feels it too. They just don't know why. And this is where bringing someone in actually makes sense, because you're solving a problem, not just adding something for the sake of it. You're fixing the one part of the act that everything else depends on. You're not thinking this might add a bit more energy. You're thinking this removes a limitation. And that's a completely different mindset, because now the songs open up. The performance becomes easier, not harder. It's like spending the whole night carefully avoiding songs would go off, then finally bringing in someone who can actually sing them, and suddenly the crowd reacts the way you thought they would, while you're standing there acting like this was the plan all along. So that's the reality. Playing with other musicians can be great when it works. Bigger sound, more energy, more presence. But everything that comes with that is a trade-off, right? You're not just adding people, you're adding variables. Different goals, different standards, different levels of commitment. And all of that has to line up for it to actually improve what you're doing. And most of the time it doesn't. That doesn't mean that don't do it. It just means go into it knowing exactly what you're taking on and why you're doing it in the first place. Because if you're building something that needs other people, that's one thing. But if you're adding people just because you think it'll automatically make things better, that's where the problems usually start. We'll see you in the next one. I'll be here, not waiting on anyone else to show up.